So, hello everyone, we're here. Time of course for a Spider-Man review. I finally saw the movie yesterday, and I said immediately, the movie has some really good scenes. I see what people are like, oh my god, it's the best movie ever, but it also has like no plot. I'm just like, what? What did I just watch, guys? I have a very hard time reviewing this movie from like a scoring standpoint. I'm just like, is it like a 5 out of 10, 0 out of 10, 10 out of 10? No, I'm just kidding, 10 out of 10. But it's like he has some really good scenes and then a lot of like it's nonsense, right? Like nothing happens amazing, right? But there are two main things I want to cover in this video, guys. Two main things. I want to review it in a spoiler review. First, I want to say that I don't hate the movie, and there's some good scenes in it. But two main things, though. Spider-Man is a villain, okay? Tom Holland Spider-Man, he's a bad guy, okay? He's a bad guy. And my big dream is to show, though, it's a very cowardly movie, okay? If you see Spider-Verse, way better, right? Into Spider-Verse. This movie is the multiverse, but it happens to only be the Spider-Man we recognize from, the member berries. Yeah, it's like, remember this thing? Remember this thing? Remember. That's basically the movie, right? And that to me was really terrible. And I was very disappointed in that. Of course I expected it to be member berry. The movie, right? Certainly. But I was thinking that, okay, let's do Tobey Maguire comes over, right? That's the member berry part. But then maybe Shocker Spider-Man can appear, Iron Man Spider-Man can appear or something, Maybe Mary Jane Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, then, right? But so on. Maybe some of those characters can appear, where Spider-Gwen or whatever. Maybe someone else can pop up, right? A new character in the Marvel universe, Miles Morales or whatever, yeah. But I was like, nope. We're just doing the latest movies. And I felt that was incredibly disappointing, honestly, because it'd be so easy to do. For example, let's say the Spider-Man's about to die, right? And then suddenly Shocker Spider-Man appears, shoots the guy in the back, and then he runs away and fights some bad guys, right? You don't need to give him a voice line. You don't need to reveal who the actor is. But if you just like show another Spider-Man outside these three, established Spider-Man, that's why Spider-Verse so good. Because they were like, here's this Japanese Spider-Girl with like a mecha spider, This movie completely lacked that actual comic feel. If you open the multiverse in the comics, right, you get a lot of Spider-Mans, right? So that was a huge issue. You're just like, why is it cowardly for? And the second thing was with the villains. While the villains definitely carried the show for that matter, especially for Doc Ock. But same thing there. You could have had villains that we haven't seen in Spider-Man movies yet. Right? Hydra Man could have appeared, and so on. We could have seen other Spider-Man characters coming in. A Hobgoblin called Ned. So that those guys could have appeared. Maybe like Flash as Venom, right? Like an evil Flash, maybe Anti-Venom could have appeared. Whatever, yeah. There's so many rogue allies characters they can still throw in this movie, right? But they just went with the old movie characters. So I felt that was really disappointing. And it's much too much member-berry focus. And I think the reason why, of course, is because it is very much Star Wars 7 and New Hope 2. It's very, very Disney, right? Where they're like, okay, people like these old movies, right? So let's just take like all the member-berries and just only have member-berry references, right? Only nostalgia trips all the time, instead of doing a new movie, right? I'm not a big fan of either of any of the new Star Wars movies, right? 7, 8, 9. But 7 to me is kind of boring, because they're like, oh, we're just remaking the fourth movie, right? Or the first, yeah. But episode 4, right? We're just episode 4 too, yeah, we're just remaking it. This movie felt like a clip show of a previous movie or something. Instead of, and my point again is that, I'll talk about more later, but I'm like, why couldn't we do this thing, right? Have this Tobey Maguire and so on. But also, of course, throw in some other Spider-Mans, right, that we haven't seen before. They don't need to have much screen time, but they will feel a lot more like how they actually done in the comics, right? Where you have so many Spider-Mans coming in, so many villains coming in, right? Like to have a Carnage Spider-Man, just throw in some other stuff, right? Yeah. So that to me was, just a lot of member berries. But anyway, let's review it. So first of all, let me say the thing, right? I'm always a huge Spider-Man fan. Also I'm a Spider-Man painting here, right? I have this classic scene here when when Gwen Stacy dies. So spoilers, but I think we see don't move that. Yeah, Spider-Man, classic comic book of that one, of course. The comics, right? I have a lot of Spider-Man figures, of course. I have that. A lot of Marvel stuff, of course. Right? Gambit on me, got some weird Spider-Man memorial stuff and so on. Right? And of course, I have seen all the Spider-Man show. Right? I grew up with Spider-Man Taz. It's kind of my age. I was, kind of 10 when I started going. Right? My favorite Spider-Man thing. To this day, it's my favorite Spider-Man storyline. I've seen, of course, all the Spider-Man shows, all the Spider-Man. And my favorite Spider-Man comic is probably Superior Spider-Man, when Dr. Octopus took over Spider-Man's body. It's an amazing storyline. I've been reading it. It's very, very good. But, and I always love this, what ifs, right? Or Spider-Man multiverse and so on. And that's one thing that I think the movies are always failing on. Right? And this movie definitely again. But first of all, let's talk about my immediate grip with these movies. Let's start with the bad stuff, yeah. Yeah. Spider-Man is the villain. It's super annoying. I find Tom Holland to be like this. He's so dislikable in the movie. Holy shit, he's dislikable. Okay? He's so dislikable. His actions have zero responsibilities, right? He has the reverse Uncle Ben. This is all about, with great power comes great responsibility, right? That is a Spider-Man motto, right? That is a Spider-Man way of life. We all know it. I think it's the best quote from a comic movie ever, right? It's just a simple idea, right? That the stronger you are, you have to sacrifice yourself, right? Because, for example, compared to the manga, right? It's very similar, I think, to All Might in My Academia. He's like, you have to run. Being a hero is about self-sacrifice, right? And if you grew up with Spider-Man, like I did, and Spider-Man Taz, also of course X-Men 90s Taz also, but anyway, in the Spider-Man show, it's all about like, oh, I need to go and save this person. I could go on a date with Mary Jane, or like Felicia or whatever, but I can't, right? Because, shit's happening over there. So I have to sacrifice my job, or my girlfriend, or this stuff, right? Or I'm gonna miss her birthday or something, right? But I have to do it because of, I'm the hero, I have to take my responsibility, right? That, of course, comes from Uncle Ben dying in the beginning of the storyline, right? As we all know, the classic Uncle Ben dies, right? And the reason why is because Uncle Ben dies because, of course, Peter Parker as Spider-Man wasn't a hero at the time, right? He wasn't like, I'm not gonna deal with some criminals, and I'm just a wrestler guy, I'm just making money here, right? And then, of course, that guy shoots Uncle Ben, right? And then he's like, oh my god, I could have saved Uncle Ben, it's my fault, and so on. So, first of all, the movie is very strange, generally, I feel. And I heard of people saying that before too, but I agree with that. Like, Tom Holland Spider-Man isn't Spider-Man, right? Yeah. He has this weird thing where it's like, oh, he completely lacks possibility. He doesn't care. And I think the issue with the movie, and this is my biggest issue, except of course the cowardly member thing, it's like the whole movie shouldn't happen, right? The whole movie only happens because Spider-Man is an idiot. Like you also said, Spider-Man, Tom Holland is a complete moron. That's the only reason the movie is even taking place, right? Because he's like, oh, let's go and like rewrite time or something, because I want to go to MIT, right? So let's do that, and that's like gonna endanger like the whole planet and probably like the whole universe. But our time spent for that stuff, yeah, it's the problem. So that immediately feels incredibly unlike Spider-Man, because Spider-Man wouldn't just endanger, right, the whole life of the planet for only himself. Even if you include that it's MJ and Ned, so it's like him and his two friends, right? They're gonna help out, and I guess Aunt May and so, but whatever. Like, these are three people mostly affected by it, right? Yeah. But still, it's like a girlfriend and best friend. It's selfish. Even if you help someone else, helping your girlfriend, has a better life, and you can have better life together. It is selfish, okay? So what it's doing is incredibly selfish. Something a Spider-Man character should never do, right? Spider-Man is supposed to be, self-sacrifice. The lack of self-sacrifice in this Spider-Man doesn't make any sense, right? So suddenly he's like, in the end, does it anyway, but before we go into the real, like, he just has no possibility and, no heroic self-sacrifice, right? Again, that's not Spider-Man. And the way I was thinking when I watched the movie, and people watching the movie, also like it for that matter, we talked about it, of course, after you watched the movie yesterday then, New Year's Eve, movie date and everything, but we were like, yeah, this Spider-Man feels like Uncle Ben hasn't died yet. And you could always say that, well, yeah, but Aunt May, spoiler, Aunt May dies, right? So that's a spoiler. And then he changes and becomes, I have responsibility, and she does a speech. That would have worked, honestly, perhaps, if it was the first movie, right? And I think that's a huge issue in this movie here, because this Spider-Man really acts like Uncle Ben, you know, that he never got a speech, he never been a hero. He acts like a Spider-Man before Spider-Man was a hero. He acts like a Spider-Man character, you know, again, when Spider-Man was just making money, right? Yeah. When Spider-Man was just, I want to make money, I don't care about other people, I just want to get rich, right? Yeah. He acts like that Spider-Man, mostly, right? But that Spider-Man is like episode 1 Spider-Man, right? That is Spider-Man, if you watch Spider-Man Task, right, or the flashback, that's kind of Spider-Man in the flashback. That's like Spider-Man, you know, in the first movie, the first 20 minutes, right? Yeah. That is Spider-Man in the beginning, right, of the Spider-Man storylines. This Spider-Man here is his third movie. This is the third Spider-Man movie, and we already have, of course, he is also appearing in, you know, different, of course, multi-heroic, you know, assembly cast movies, right? Of course. So this Spider-Man has been through a lot of stuff already, right? And he already met, you know, Iron Man and blah blah blah. So yeah. So this guy is a hero, supposedly, right? He's already in the hero business, right? He's been a hero for X number of time, right? Been through a lot, right? Yet he acts basically like he's a Spider-Man before he becomes the real Spider-Man. Like he's still like a money grubbing, you know, he's doing it, you know, to make money, right? That's what how he's acting, right? So he's acting again like the Spider-Man of like Spider-Man episode 1, right? Basically, you know, or the flashback, right? Whatever. But yeah, basically episode 1. Yet this movie is like episode 55 or whatever. Yeah. So it doesn't make any sense that Spider-Man has so little concern about other people, right? But when he's at this level of his career, so to speak. So I found it very, very, very annoying, and I found him again incredibly dislikable, right? Because, of course, this is the whole thing of the movie. This whole plot, right? Spider-Man is the villain. He's just like, I want to do this shit. I don't care if people die. I don't care this thing. I don't care about the conflict. I want to do it. And then he beats up Doctor Strange, right? And he keeps doing bad stuff the whole movie. You're like, he's clearly the villain. Like, can you stop doing bad stuff, Spider-Man? He's supposed to be a hero. He's supposed to be self-sacrifice. That is Spider-Man. He's supposed to, do stuff that you don't want to do, but it's the right thing to do, right? It's the right thing to do to not endanger the whole planet so you can go to MIT. And he keeps doing it. And the Strange is like, don't do it, boy. And it's just so stupid because, like, it just gets worse and worse. Like, every scene, I feel him more and more dislikable, right? Because at least in the beginning, it's like, okay, I'm gonna talk to the Strange, you know, this spell, and then I ruin the spell. Very bad scene, but I ruin the spell. But shit happens, right? And you know, the blah blah blah. But later on, Strange is like, okay, this is gonna destroy the multiverse. We're all gonna die, right? I mean, millions of people are gonna die on all the Earths, or maybe even the whole universe gonna die, and all the universe will die. So this is like these 6 lives or 5 lives. Yeah, they're so yeah, it's like these are so, you know, so many lives compared to these lives, right? And the Strange basically, okay, we have to do this thing, right? We have to die, blah blah blah, so on. And Peter is like, okay, yeah. And Stacy run away and beats him up, and yeah, like that is crazy, right? Because at least in the beginning, you could say that he was just a complete moron. Okay, he's a complete selfish moron in the beginning, but then afterward, the Strange is like, okay, shit just happened now. Look at this, the multiverse is breaking. You can see it's breaking over here. You can see it's burning over here. We have to stop the fire. And yet Spider-Man's like, no, I need to save them because of reasons unredeemable, and runs away with it. And that is ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. It should be like, yeah, you're right. The world is burning down over there. I have to probably save the planet, right? So it's just terrible. Like that's something that Spider-Man would never do. And I want to put this thing out here too. That I also decided to move generally. Doctor Strange is a terrible character in this movie. He's not Doctor Strange at all. Doctor Strange would never agree to this thing in the beginning, right? It doesn't make any sense. The whole movie is like Spider-Man and Doctor Strange being real stupid, right? Mostly, right? I mean, at least if you can agree to it, you should explain the rules that you can't talk to me, this thing. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, like that was just stupid. So the reason the movie happens is because it's written terribly, right? And then it basically has no plot afterwards. It has basically no plot, right? It's run around fighting about the heroes, but I think the movie honestly is kind of uninteresting in that sense. Yeah, like not much happens. I mean, sure they have fights and then they have, you know, member-berry characters. But what is the actual plot? The plot is like, Spider-Man's really stupid. He, like Strange said, you haven't even called the university. You just came to me to do like a time spell thing. It's crazy talk. They do the, you know, stupid forgetting failure spell, right? And then they fight the villains and argue for like 2 hours. And then they fight the villains again, and then it's over. Yeah, there is no actual, there basically is no plot like in this movie. Like the plot is so, it's so tiny, right? And I think the reason people like it now because of the member barriers, right? But I really do think people are gonna come back and really see that this movie is overrated, and I think it's definitely gonna have a steadily decline, right? Because having a movie with basically, again, I really say basically no plot, right? More or less, except Peter's really stupid. There's no real plot. Having that lack of a real plot is gonna make people have a hard time rewatching it, right? I have rewatched many Spider-Man movies. I have seen the Spider-Man Taz show like 50 times. I don't know how, but I've seen every episode of Spider-Man Taz probably like 6-7 times, okay? Best freaking Spider-Man show ever. But, like, I don't think I ever will rewatch this movie. Because there's no plot, right? There's no interesting... Yeah, it's just like a bunch of clips of them doing member berry stuff, right? Yeah, it's nostalgia clip. But after you've seen it once, what's the point of it again, right? So I really think this movie is going to have a really bad... long tail, it's called, economy. It's a very short tail, right? It's a very, like, you see it once, you're like, oh yeah, that was pretty good. And again, I didn't hate the movie, even though I'm sort of negative here. But the thing is that all the good stuff is basically different nostalgia trip clips, right? The rest of the movie is just pretty terrible. So it's like, okay, it has some really good, again, scenes, right, every now and then. But the general red line, the plot through the movie is just terrible. So I'm just like, oh, that's a great scene. That's a great scene. That's a great scene. You know, it's like, that was a great scene. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So you have like a bunch of great scenes every now and then, but it's, the substance in between those scenes are just really lacking. And I really hated, Tom Holland's villain Spider-Man. Right? It's just so annoying. But anyway, what I was thinking about immediately watching the movie during this Doctor Strange, also out of character helping him in this stupid way, is that it should have been Mephisto, okay? But again, the movie is too afraid to add even a single character, so the movie is just terribly cowardly. But so anyway, in the comics, and this is one of the most controversial, if not the most controversial comic ever on Spider-Man, that or the Clones Saga thing, which is also like the old Ben Reilly, Kane, and so on. Let's not get into that, okay? I have read it several times. It is very confusing. The Clone... If you're like me, an old Spider-Man fan, and you read the Clone Saga, that shit is crazy. But anyway, that is very controversial. Who's the real Spider-Man and the clones and so on, very controversial. But then the second most, or the most controversial comic in Spider-Man, is then what this movie is based on, to some extent, and that is when Spider-Man asks Mephisto to rewrite kind of the reality for him, right? With the whole people know who he is, so on. And then he yet kind of reveals who he is to the Avengers. Anyway, but it's like, but anyway, don't get to that. It just makes so much more sense, right? I'm not gonna cover too much comic here, but it's basically, from my standpoint, yeah, that makes so much more sense. That Mephisto is like, oh, you wanna rewrite time and reality? Well, I am the demon lord, guys, so yeah, I'm awesome, I can do that shit for you. Like that feels a Mephisto action a lot more, right? But the Strange is like, he should be like, you're an idiot, I don't want to do that shit. We might kill the whole planet, right? We might make Thanos return or something. I don't want to do this shit with like some kind of reverse reality shit, no more mutant stuff. I don't want to do that, yeah. But the Strange should have been like, you just know, right? Yeah. Because it's just a insignificant thing to do, right? Oh, you and your two friends can get into MIT or something. It's just a pointless thing. It's not even to like try to revive Aunt May or something, or... I mean, at least that, yeah, honestly, maybe that could have made the movie so much better too, honestly, because I just have a very hard time, I guess, with the movie's premise, right? Again, the movie has no plot, right? That at least if something else had happened, that was much more impactful, right? Because even if you, for whatever reason, think that, no, it's a great action, or not selfish at all, to like, try to get a girlfriend into MIT or something, like yeah, whatever, but... Could it be something else, right? Could it be something else? Couldn't Aunt May die in the beginning of the movie? What if Aunt May died in the first 10 minutes, and then he goes to Dr. Strange like, hey, sir, can you please revive Aunt May, right? That's a classic Spider-Man thing, right? They're trying to revive Aunt May, or his daughter for that matter, May, right? Yeah, that's a classic Spider-Man comic thing, right? Trying to revive, or, somehow with May. Like Spider-Man Taz, Mary Jane disappears in the time, right? Madame Web has on that. That kind of stuff right there, and the clone thing and so on, whatever. Like, that kind of shit, right, would have made so much more sense. What if we involve the Spider-Verse, you go and save Miles Morales, or Ben Reilly if it's the clone thing and stuff and so on, right? So it's so much easier, right, to set up the premise that Spider-Man goes to the Strange to save Aunt May, for example, right? That I would have bought, it would have been selfish, save another person's life for him, if his personal family, but it would have been much more impactful. It would have been, and you could see Strange being like, okay, like your friends and your family, your mom basically is dead. Okay, let's have to fix that. That just something like that, right? Would have made the movie, I think, just a lot better, right? Because then later on, when Spider-Man and fight the Strange, it could have been like, yes, I want to save these guys, and if we reverse the spell right now, Aunt May might still be dead or whatever. I have to take the spell right. It would have been so much more believable, right? Spider-Man wouldn't have been an idiot. He would have been, but still, of course, lacking possibility, right? Letting her be alive versus the whole planet. But the emotional turmoil would have been so much more realistic, right? It would have been like, I have to do it. And then, of course, maybe he talks to May, and then she would be like, no, you have to let me go, right? You have to let me die so we can save the planet or whatever. So it's just like, just that kind of shit, right? Where I'm thinking about the movie, and the movie really, again, as it is terribly writing. Because it's just like, why can't you make the premise be so much more believable? And I'm being much more in Spider-Man's aspect, right? So it's much harder for him to judge the whole leaf, like self-sacrifice versus his family, or Mary Jane could have died or whatever, right? Or they could have a daughter, she could have died or something like that. It could have been much more meaningful, right? Why he's doing it for. And now instead it comes off as a selfish little bastard, right? He's an entitled kid basically. That's like, I need to go to school. It's like, and again, he didn't even try anything else, right? I also find this is a nitpick issue though, but I drop it here and I'm talking about it. I also find it, I don't know, frustrating that it's also MIT, almost a famous school, but I mean, in the Spider-Man universe and the Marvel universe, they have other, famous schools, so to speak. And I don't know, that's a nitpick issue, but I felt that like, I don't want the Spider-Man movies to be too much our world. It's supposed to be in our world, right? But I think it's more interesting that in the Spider-Man typical comics, that they have this university is even better than MIT. It's like space MIT, whatever. Yeah, that also would have made a little better premise. If they were going to MIT, they would go into mega MIT, you know what I mean? And it'll be like, oh, but we have to go into mega MIT. That's even better. Yeah, it's a little bit like that. Like I feel that also would make it maybe slightly better if it was like this magical, super badass school, right? That they wanted to go through their whole life or something. So that's not this big, but still, I think that would make just generally the movies better too, right? If they actually stayed with some of the comics, I suppose, more how can it overblown super schools and so on, right? Initiative, whatever, yeah, like, it should be better. But anyway, I digress. So the plot is just completely not there, right? And yeah, like his motivation is just terrible, and he acts like the villain the whole movie basically. Another issue too with the movie, which I feel this is not a nitpick at all, is that why is he even trying to save them all, right? And I understand that yes, it's Spider-Man, for example, curing Kurt Connors, the Lizard, is very classic, it's very iconic, have basically every Lizard storyline. The problem here is that they have been sent from the other universes before they die, right, to him. And if he cure Kurt Connors and sends him back, he's gonna die anyway. So if it's me, like, from a logical standpoint, what the F are you doing, man? They're all gonna die anyway. Like, it doesn't matter. Oh, Green Goblin, Norman Osborn, is gonna be like removing his Goblin Serum. Then it's gonna come back and it's gonna get impaled by the glider anyway. So what's the point, right? Yeah, like nothing of the movie should have happened. It's a huge issue that the movie has basically again no plot, and the little plot it has is just to keep making Spider-Man do bad stuff, right? Yeah, keep making him do stupid and villainous actions that has no point, especially with like curing them makes no point because they're gonna die anyway. That is the logical conclusion of it, right? Like, yeah, we're gonna send them back before they die. Like, you're gonna die. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And and there was not even addressed in the movie. No one ever say like, wait, but yeah, sure, you're gonna remove my powers, then I go back and I get killed. Like, how you stop that thing, right? It should have been more like the multiverse fix. We're gonna have to send you back 5 minutes prior without no powers. Then you can maybe talk to Spider-Man and you can be friends or whatever. Yeah, like it's and also an issue with this thing, generally speaking, right, is that they're not just moving dimension, they're moving in time too, right? It wasn't moving in one plane, it was moving in a time plane. Because of course there are different Spider-Man villains here from the same, Spider-Man timeline, right, from Tom Holland, which means that, but what if you actually did save Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, right, from the first movie? Wouldn't that then change his timeline? You might kill Tom McGuire Spider-Man, right? By doing that, maybe Harry won't turn into Goblin and something else happens, right? Or by doing that, Hobgoblin is gonna come earlier and kill Spider-Man or kill someone else, right? Or whatever, or the demon Goblin with Carnage and Shriek, shit's gonna happen, and Doppelganger's gonna come in and they're gonna do shit and so on. like something else might happen, right? So this is just so terrible, and they never again addressed in the movie that by saving them, even if you did save them, right, that is gonna affect the other timelines of the other universes again with completely unknown consequences, right? And these two other Spider-Mans are of course helping him to like rewrite their own universes should really be like, well, but if this happens, like, am I gonna die, right? For example, of course, Spider-Man 2 with Andrew loses Gwen Stacy, right? Maybe he can save Gwen Stacy by doing that. I guess for that matter, right? Like rewriting the Lizard and of course then Electro, maybe, or maybe they're both gonna die, right? Yeah, it feels like there's all these like very obvious, very obvious issues with what they're doing, right? And that also really undermines Spider-Man's any kind of heroic cause whatsoever. Because yes, it's really stupid. It's completely like, lack of possibility, right? That is like, oh, I'm gonna try to save them, whatever. You can save them because logically speaking, they're gonna go back and die immediately anyway. So it's completely pointless what you're doing, right? But even if you did then save them, then you might just kill everyone instead. You might kill the other Spider-Man. You might ruin the universe. That was just so bad. And again, it makes him the villain because he's just incredibly egoistic, selfish, has zero intelligence, right? Zero planning and so on. And, keeps beating up the Strange, right? And for that matter, this is more nitpick, but I was fine. Okay, so the Strange is captured in the Grand Canyon thing, right? Okay, fine. But then we have all the issues. And this is, again, stupid movie thing, right? Why don't you go back and save the Strange, right? You know what I mean? After, sure, he might want to kill them, but come on, the plan is going terrible here. Why won't you go back, right? And of course, also, Mary Jane has the box shit. She's like, I'm gonna press it, right? And she doesn't press it. It's also so stupid. Oh my god, this movie's plot is terrible. Like I said, it has all the member Barry scenes, which some of them are, great, right? This is my favorite scene, of course. And this shit's happening, right? Member Barry. But it's like the actual plot is just so bad with everything because Mary Jane could have pressed the button right immediately when she hit the fan, right. That also would have ended the movie. Maybe something else would happen, right. So it's also like, well, they could have went and rescued the Strange something. It would be happened. It's just like nothing. No action of the characters had any intelligence whatsoever, right. So everything is just spanned on like really selfish and stupid actions to keep having the movie going. And again, then there's no actual plot. You just kind of keep fighting or doing jokes, doing memories. But again, I was negative. This scene, I love the scene. So talk about it quickly. This scene is great because, and it shows you that it's a lot of like callbacks to old movies. Right? This scene is great. What happens, of course, is that in the Andrews spoiler for Spider-Man movie, Gwen Stacy dies. Right? Again, classic Gwen Stacy. She gets killed. Not by Green Goblin in that movie, but that doesn't matter. She dies, and she's the first Spider-Man love, right? And then he gets Mary Jane, so that's classic Spider-Man storyline. And for example, the reason that Gwen Stacy wasn't in Spider-Man Task is because she had to die, right? And they felt that we can't have a kill of a lady female character here, a young character here in a kids show, right? When they made Spider-Man Task, so they couldn't. So they didn't want to add Gwen Stacy because they were like, we have to kill her then, so we can't do that. But then they did that Mary Jane, and they have this similar scene against Green Goblin Mary Jane, but she falls into this time gate set, right? Yeah, this portal gun kind of thing, right? So she doesn't, die, but like disappears from Earth, right? From another, universe. Right? So that's how they kind of went around that, right? In the classic Spider-Man Task, they were like, well, if you don't kill her, but we kind of throw her into another dimension, So she's basically dead, but not actually dead, right? So, but anyway. In this Spider-Man movie, of course, Andrew loses Gwen Stacy, And this was a really good scene. It definitely made me almost tear up a bit and massive goosebump scene. It was like, oh, there's a great recall. Yeah, he's like, oh no, like he remembers. Okay, this time I won't fail. I'm gonna save this woman, right? By not doing the web tip, by grabbing her and so on. He's learned from his mistake, right? Because it was kind of his fault that she died, whiplash, right? So he's like, I'm gonna improve this time and so on. So that thing was great, right? Unfortunately, Tom McGuire doesn't improve at all. So it's like, okay, but that kind of scene was good, absolutely. And there's of course a lot of good jokes and so on, right, across in the movie. But again, it's like I don't hate the movie in the sense that it had a lot of enjoyable scenes like that scene, and many the fights, of course, generally speaking, were good, right? Like the Doc Ock fighting scene on the bridge in the beginning was good, and so on. The end fighting scene was good. Definitely hard to see what Spider-Man's doing what, right? But it was like, it was pretty good, yeah, and so on. But what else happened, right? I'm just like, one issue though, and I think this is a very, very non-issue for the Spider-Man, or the Spider-Man, but Marvel, more in particular, right, is that Marvel movies these days are like slapstick comedy, joke, yeah. It's very classic, right? Very memey that they are like, oh, here's someone dying. Let's throw in a joke, It's gonna be fun, yeah. So this movie felt it all the time, and I think immediately, like I said, I hated every scene with Mary Ann and Ned. Then I had to say, oh my god, so pointless. It's so pointless. Ned is there to just be like, he's just there to be that, fan service commentary. He's like, the sanctum of this stuff. Oh, dear, yeah. He's there to be like a Wikipedia article. He's there like, oh, this is Doctor Strange famous purgatory item, and yeah, he's there to be like, he's throwing out names. Oh my god, the lizard from that universe. It's basically, right, he's there to be that guy. It would be fun if he was like an interdimensional guy, the Watcher. It'd be like, I remember this guy. He's from this universe 11. Come on, it could have made it even better. It could have made it could have made like a space traveling Ned that was like, oh, I remember everything from the other universes. No, completely pointless character, and also of course ruining some of the Strange, because suddenly he could like use magic, and like, why can't he use magic for? That one didn't bother me that much, but I agree. As some reviews, people saying that this kind of ruins, how hard it is for Strange and other people to learn to use read. It's like, I can just do it automatically. It's like whatever, yeah. But of course, the bigger plot point of that scene, and this is I see people too, is that why would you stop at Spider-Man 2 and 3? You would be like, Spider-Man. I would be like, more Spider-Man. So I would have summoned, Spider-Man after Spider-Man after Spider-Man, right? It's just crazy. Or, of course, I think about it when I was when I was watching the movie again. This is my huge point here. Coming to my second point here. Spider-Man's a bad guy. And let's go talk about, I mentioned earlier, but I really want to emphasize this point, why the movie, I think, is so cowardly, right? And what, again, really disappointed me. Yes, Spider-Man is likable and he's a bad guy in the movie, but what I really hated, honestly, the movie that I really found that weakened the movie for me, right, is, of course, I can mention again, the complete lack of other characters. It's just so boring. Like, if you ever watched the classic Spider-Man task, and I say again, this is the best Spider-Man, okay? Spider-Man, then they met the Shears, 94 and forward. It is a masterpiece, and of course it goes in the same time with like Wolverine and X-Men and that shit, right? We're gonna have the Wolverine 90s. No, I'm just joking. We're the X-Men. But we all know that Wolverine is carrying the X-Men. No, but the other characters are good too. Scott is good too, and so on, to some extent. Even Jubilee was pretty good in that show. Gambit is good. Okay, Gambit is the best boy. No, so yeah, the Spider-Man and of course the X-Men 90 show are amazing, and they take place across the same universe. Then he has some other stuff too, like Iron Man and so on. But anyway, this is from the end, so I'm gonna spoil it now. But in the end of the show, Spider-Man goes to another planet, right? With the whole matter episode, and they're fighting these other bad guys, and the Beyonder summons like, and this is based on the Secret Wars in the comics, and Beyonder summons like the Doom and so on, and they have to fight him, right? And Spider-Man can then recruit a few other heroes, right, from the Spider-Man for the Marvel universe. So he gets Fantastic Four, so he gets the Doom, he gets Captain America, he gets Red Skull and so on, and he also, for example, converts, Kurt Connors to his side, right? Takes the Lizard, give him the control, and blah blah, and of course he gets Black Cat there because he wanna have, I don't know, sex or something. But so he gets his heroes back, right? And this is something you massively lag here. Yeah, if you're gonna do, of course, a multiverse in a Spider-Man storyline, you expect him to bring in Cap, right? You expect him to bring in Iron Man, you expect the other characters to appear, right? And this is a huge issue the movies has, right? The movies are massive issue throwing in that actual organic growth that the comic always had. Because the comic and the TV shows, the two shows, can so easily be like, well, in this chapter, here's the Punisher, it's gonna help with Daredevil, and they're gonna be Punisher and Daredevil, and they're gonna fight Deadpool. Okay, it's a classic comic book when it's like, it's Daredevil, Punisher, and Spider-Man versus Deadpool. Classic, like a shoot that they have there. And let's say throw in Tombstone and this thing, and so on. Yeah, that thing is completely lacking, right? You're like, that's why I have no problem saying that, right? And it might sound like an elitist then. Well, the comics is so much better, but it's not really about the comic being better. It's about the comics having that easy access, right? To just throwing in any guy they want. Yeah, I want to throw in, Mecha Spider-Man. I can do that, right? Because I can just write it in, write the voice line. There's no actor, there's no that need, right? So it's cheaper doing it. But again, this movie has like $100 of million in budget, right? And as I mentioned earlier, you don't need it. You don't need like Mecha Spider-Man to be played by a famous actor. Just anyone would have done it role. I would have done it for free, basically. You know what I mean? Anyone would have done it cheaply. Just throw in a random guy playing this other Spider-Man. Yeah, or of course then Cap and so on. Because the opening a multiverse games, right? You can have like Captain America coming from another universe. Right? It doesn't have to be, of course, Chris Evans or whatever. It doesn't have to be and like famous Spider-Mans, Captain Americas or Spider-Mans or whatever, yeah, it could be like anyone, right, that is Captain America. It could have been, the black Captain America, yeah, it could have been so on, right. You can have other Captain America, you can have a female Captain America, like something what different, yeah. You can throw in these other multiverse characters, throw in like a black female Captain America, played by an unknown actor, right, pay her very little money, right, compared to the other characters. And then she's there, and she can throw a shield have also. Like, how hard can it be, right? I was saying, like, how hard can it be? And I would much rather see that than having them only, fighting with, again, the two recognized Spider-Mans, right? And as I mentioned earlier, what I would have preferred, generally speaking, is like the end of Spider-Man task, where they bring in all these different Spider-Mans from the universes to fight evil Spider-Man, right? So they're basically gonna fight evil Spider-Man versus current Spider-Man, and Mother Webbers is like Shocker Spider-Man, Iron Man Spider-Man, Iron Spider, and they bring in like Spider-Man with 6 arms, duplicating Spider-Man, and throw in like a bunch of Spider-Mans, right, to fight evil Spider-Man, yeah. So there's a lot of other Spider-Verse characters, right? Throw in them in the movie. I know I said it several times now, but I find the movie, again, it's so cowardly that you don't do this thing, right? It's so cowardly, you're not bringing in the other characters. Or, as I mentioned then, Captain America or whatever, right? Bring in a good Red Skull. I don't care. Just do something else. Bring in the Black Cat, yeah. As I mentioned earlier, Mary Jane is Spider-Woman. As I've been in Exiles. Okay, I'm a huge. Okay, I read all the Marvel comics. Okay, so in Exiles, Mary Jane is Spider-Woman, and she's a lesbian for that matter, and she has. She's dating female Sunfire, right? Yeah, she's having sex. Yeah, it's like a sexy with her and female Sunfire. Yeah, like she's a lesbian and so on. And she's part of the some of the Exile story. Exile is about X-Men characters traveling in different like what if scenarios, basically. Like one of them is if Connor wants never turns into lizards and so on. So they start dating one of these Spider-Woman that she meets in one of these universes and so on. So like throw her in there, yeah. Throw in, Mary Jane Spider-Woman, yeah. Why not? Like I think that would be interesting. Yeah, you have these two Spider-Man coming, and then you have like Spider-Man, and suddenly he goes like an Oppai Spider-Lady out there with huge tits, right? And they're like, "Wow, Spider-Woman with boobs, what?" She's like, "Oh, I'm Spider-Woman, yeah." Or her name could be like Petra Parker, whatever, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, yeah, and they're like, oh, cool, right? Wouldn't that be much better? Wouldn't that be much more interesting? Right? I mean, it's like, I'm honestly amazed they didn't do that, right? It doesn't have to be like 50 Spider-Man characters coming. I want to say that. But I'm just saying that throw in like 2-3 other Spider-Man characters. And again, it could be like the Daredevil scene. You don't need to be. It could be like, oh, I'm a great lawyer. Yeah, a lot. That's good. Yeah, it could be like that. Right? Honestly, probably one of the best scenes in the whole movie. The Matt Murdock scene. Yeah, where he grabs the stone. Right? But just do stuff with that. Yeah, throw in a Spider-Man with boobs, and she does a few attacks. Maybe she has some. Like Spider-Woman has, Spider-Man woman in the current 616 Marvel, so to speak, Spider-Woman. She has some kind of pheromone and some kind of, spider seductive ability. Yeah, give her that shit then. Like, give her something else. She can come in there, and maybe the Lizard is gonna kill Spider-Man or whatever, right? She's like, I can seduce him with my spider smell. And he's like, oh! And he gets confused, and then she can fight him, right? Just throw them in there, do some that shit. It can be like a 1 minute scene, right? It doesn't have to be more than that. That kind of stuff. It's just so easy sitting here, in my opinion. You're brainstorming, basically, right? So many things that could have happened, right? And literally nothing happened. Yeah, and that's why the movie disappointed me. It's literally nothing happened. Again, I'm iterating here. I'm not repetitive, but think about it. I'm not saying that I have the perfect solution here. I'm not saying I have the best idea what we could have done with a Spider-Man movie. That's a multiverse Spider-Man movie. But I have a lot of ideas, right? I'm not saying that, again, these are the best ideas or whatever. My point is that they took no ideas. I'm just trying to imagine how they work for these things. They're sitting there, the writer and blah, 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 and so on, right? And director. And wasn't anyone like, can't we have like a female Spider-Man? Maybe we could have like Miles Morales coming in. That people would love that in the movies. They're probably gonna go and buy and see that. We have, there's even a scene, right? Where Electro's like, I wish you were a black guy. Yeah, couldn't like Miles Morales appear there and be like, hey, I think it would be pretty cool. Like, it's like I'm just trying to be like diversifying Spider-Man here. But honestly, no, just like Spider-Verse, right? Yeah, you have this well recognized. Non-white Spider-Man character. Right? I would generally have loved to see him in the movie, right? Because that would be the first time we live actually see Miles Morales. I think it would fit the general Spider-Man mythos, right? Because they spent so much time on Miles Morales in the comics and the Spider-Verse in the comics, which I read. They're very good. They're very, very good. And the Spider-Verse, we have, of course, Silk for that matter. Oh man, Silk's a baby. Yeah, we have Silk. I thought I spoiled too much here, but yeah, we have Silk again. Very cool female Spider-Man character, which is very important for the whole Spider in verse team, right? As I mentioned earlier, we have Spider-Gwen, right? Also a very popular character. We also have Deadpool, Gwen, and so on. I don't know. Honestly, I found that strange, right? Because I would expect them to be more like inclusive, right? They're bringing in a female Spider-Man, Spider-Woman, then, yeah. Honestly. But also cool other characters too, right? And or just Spider-Man Noir or whatever. Yeah, just throw in this bunch of other characters, right? It's so easy to pick up all these different Spider-Man characters, and you just didn't do anything, right? Like I said, I can throw out 100 of ideas here that I think would be better than what they did, because they just did nothing. They just didn't take anything. They're just like, here are the bad guys from the previous movies. Not all the bad guys though. Not like Harry's Green Goblin. That to me was appalling, honestly. With James Franco playing him. Honestly, I don't understand why they did that. Like, that to me was just stupid, right? Because it would be really interesting. Really interesting. Because it's very uncommon in the comics as well that they have more than one Green Goblin, right? Because Harry and Norman, they're both crazy so on, right? And usually Norman dies or is missing. Then Harry becomes Green Goblin, vice versa, back and forth, right? And then he dies or whatever, then Norman returns for whatever reason, and he's angry that his son is dead, and then he has some other sons and daughters and blah blah blah, and then he's has sex with Harry's wife, and this shit, yeah, but it's like all this crazy stuff, and him and Gwen as babies, and it's so crazy. That's what is so terrible when Norman has babies with Gwen Stacy. It's twins. Oh, it's the worst thought ever. But anyway, they also go crazy so on. They have some kind of weird growth serum, so they are. It's so strange. She looks like Gwen, but all this shit, right? Like something like that would have been more interesting. I'm actually honestly again, I found that really, really dumb. Right? Why did they have Harry and Norman, right? Double Green Goblin. And for that matter, throw in Ned, right? Throw in freaking Hobgoblin. If Ned is an important character in these movies, right? Yeah, they go to have a line, they have like a reference line to Hobgoblin, of course, in the movie. But I'm like, yeah, just throw in Hobgoblin then, right? Yeah, like why? Is Hobgoblin certainly has to know in Infinity Universe that Spider-Man is Spider-Man. Right? Throw in Hobgoblin, you know. Throw him in, throw in Harry, throw in like 3-4 goblins. Like, it's just so boring. Isn't that really boring? Why isn't like 5 goblins coming in? Like, why isn't it more than 1? Why isn't it... If you're gonna be too afraid to have new bad guys, why not throw in like, more of one? And they should miscast like Ryan or whatever, but not a very good character. But I always like Shocker though. I like Shocker's a good character, but it's just like weird. Here's the some of the Spider-Man, classic Spider-Man tasks, characters. Yeah, you have so many to pick from. You have Hammerhead. You have, of course, Kingpin could have appeared. I would also add to Smite. I think one of the best characters in the classic show, and so on. Right. Hydra Man, Chameleon, Scorpion could appear, Tombstone, the Prowler. There's just so many characters could have appeared. And, obviously I'm just beating a dead horse now, but I don't understand why they didn't do anything of this, right? And it's not only, both on the hero side, both on having more Spider-Mans or having more older characters, like, again, Captain America, but also the whole thing that, okay, couldn't we have, like, 3 Green Goblins or 2 Green Goblins? Like, that would be way cooler. If the other thing, I think the last fight to me was very underwhelming, right? I mean, it was pretty okay, but come on, like, in my head, I am thinking like, it's gonna be like 20 Spider-Mans, right? Fighting like 50 bad guys. That's my head. Yeah, in my head, then the movie starts, honestly, because I also avoid trailers and spoilers, right? So in my head, I'm like, okay, here we come. Dr. Octopus, he's a very good actor, this is great. Here we have Green Goblin, okay, here we have these guys. And then in my head, I'm thinking that, okay, this is obviously gonna go worse and worse, right? Because, okay, the magic is getting, bigger and bigger, and it's gonna explode, right? And it's gonna just be like, shit, it's gonna hit the fan, right? I'm just imagining, for half the movie, I'm thinking that shit is gonna hit the fan, and it's gonna be an explosion of characters coming, right? I don't know why, I didn't really expect that, but honestly, at least in my head, I was dreaming that they were gonna go like, okay, it's bigger and bigger, here's the classic bad guys recognized, member Barry, and then be like, bam! And suddenly, here comes like, 50 more bad guys, right? Just bam, 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 suddenly, here's like 3 Shockers, right? And here's this guy, here's Carnage, here's like every freaking character coming in, because now you're broken the reality. Here comes from like 20 other dimensions, it comes 3 bad guys each, 60 more bad guys, right? Bam, 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 and it's like, holy shit, Spider-Man's gonna die. Sure, it's gonna be similar to the Avengers movies, where it's like, I am here, and then the door opens, and suddenly, on your right, and then, sure, it's gonna be similar to that. But something like that would have been, well, I much rather see that, yeah. Throw in all the Spider-Man bad guys, multi-tap of that, and then seeing all these different Spider-Man, of course, good guys coming in, right? Again, they can both be Spider-Man, they can also be Spider-Man allies, right? Or it could be some mixture, it could be Spider-Man zombie, it could be like Spider-Cap, right? Kind of like Captain America and Spider-Man, it could be Spider-Man Tour, I don't care, like, just throw in that shit, right? I think the last is just really boring, yeah, the last part is boring, because it's like, it's the most underwhelming way to do it, when you still only have those bad guys. And of course, I did a nitpick, but like, why is there Sinister 5 basically? I know they have Venom in some kind of cameo stuff, but I'm like, yeah, that is so weird to me, right? Because it's a very classic, iconic thing. The Spider-Man fights the Sinister Six, right? And that's because Stan Lee loves to do this, like Peter Parker, Matt Murdock, and so on. So of course, the bad guy group is called SS, right? Sinister Six. Yeah, it's like a very classic, classic force. He loves doing that, yeah. So it's very, very iconic. The Spider-Man fights different version of Sinister Six, right, in the comics and in all the shows and so on. Very, very iconic. They're trying to build that in the previous movies, right? So yeah, that also felt just really strange to me. That is felt very strange, like, because again, it's incredibly iconic that he's fighting 6 bad guys, right? 1, yeah, and it's like there's 5 of them. That was kind of weird, honestly. This felt strange to me. At least throw in 1 more bad guy so they have the 6, right? Like again, I think the best case, if you had to throw in from all of these movies, I would have picked Harry, right? So they have 2 Green Goblins. Because that would be a really cool dynamic to having them both be crazy and be, I'm the real Green Goblin! Oh, it's me, Harry! And like, that would be really good, seeing the Green Goblins kind of, dynamically going at each other, right? That would be really good. I think some of the good parts of the movie are definitely, like the Octopus talking to Norman Osborn and so on. That kind of stuff is interesting, right? Yeah, I see more of that, right? And less of his stupid friends being stupid, yeah. or I don't know, Spider-Man beating the crap out of Doctor Strange, right? And I haven't even covered stuff like that he can so easily beat Strange, even though I can kind of buy it because of his like equilibrium balance power that Spider-Man has. But one issue though that the fight with Strange Spider-Man has from a plot hole standpoint, don't remember plot hole per se, but from a narrative standpoint, is that Doctor Strange, of course, asshole punches Spider-Man, right? I think he fell out of the body. And from a comic standpoint, it actually makes sense. So I can explain it here. But I think from a movie standpoint, it makes zero sense, and it should be explained in movies. I think that also, again, the writing is terrible, because there is no real plot, right? So, anyway, so Doctor Strange punches Spider-Man, he falls out of the body, and he can still control his body and avoid and so on, and also fly back into the body. That's what reads in the comics. But the thing is that Spider-Man is a totem, he's like a totemic spider god thing, right? Because this is like the tingling power Spider-Man has is built on the threads of fate, right? So basically, it's magic. It's not like a Spider-Man power as a physical strength of being a spider. It's actually magic. You can basically see in the future with the spider tingling, right? Because it's like the world, it's like the mythology, the Norns. It's like the world is a thread of fate, right? The whole idea of that, the thread of fate. You write the thread, right? So Spider-Man has the power to connect into the future in a magical sense, right? That is how you can avoid stuff. This is, of course, in detail explained in the Spider-Man, Spider-Verse in the comics, not in the movie, but in the Spider-Verse comics, they are basically these people. This is gonna be hard to spoil too much, but they're very good. I recommend reading them. But basically, they are this race of like super beings in another universe that kill all the Spider-Mans because they kind of collect this, like the power of the totemic spider, blah blah, and the spider thread and so on. And then the Spider-Man, of course, has this thread power, and then we have this unique female Spider-Man character, Silk, and so on, evolved, right? There's also, it's supported with the whole Kane, right? The Spider-Man clone, and Ben Riley, and so on, the Scarlet Spider-Man, because it's another Spider-Man thing, and they can turn into Spider-Man God thing, and so on. And when Spider-Man in the, 2000, around the Iron Scarlet Spider-Man thing, he develops this like stingers. He develops this like real webbing, right? And then it turns into this like spider arachnid monster kind of thing, and it's all that stuff, right? And Kane, of course, has other powers and so on. So it's like a lot of other stuff. How Spider-Man is basically like a spider goddess arachnid kind of thing inside of him, and it's all this cool stuff. But anyway, without going into much detail that thing, right? It actually kind of explains why his body will still be able to avoid, because basically Spider-Man is partially magic, right? So I don't actually have any problem that Spider-Man can avoid the Strange, because it's like he's magical, so he's like avoiding anyway, right? Even if he's not in his body, he has like a magical connection to the threads of fate, right? So okay, he can avoid attacks, even if he's not, even if he's magically like displaced from his body. Like, I buy that, honestly, I buy that straight up. Okay, so I have no problem with it from an actual, Spider-Man power lore thing. It makes sense. The problem I have it in a movie, though, I think a lot of people. I see people say this is not a review and so on. So I watched a review for my review now. It's like, if you're a movie only guy, this makes no sense. You're like, how can Spider-Man use magic? That doesn't make any sense. And I think the bigger issue, though, with it from my standpoint, from again in the review here, is that it comes back to what I mentioned earlier. There is no plot, right? I'm just like, why is it never explained for? Basically, I don't think this needed to be explained before this movie, right? We can have Spider-Man discover having magical powers in his movie. Like, fine, find Doctor Strange, his medical power, sure, I buy that, right? As I said, in comics, it actually makes sense. But don't you expect in the movie, like I expected in the movie, to, explore that, right? I expected Doctor Strange to be like, how can this kid, fight me in astral medical plane shit? I expected, and because, of course, again, this is clearly, partially a Spider-Verse live-action movie, right? And again, in the Spider-Verse, in the comics, it's all about those totemic Spider-Man god things, and these bad guys eating Spider-Mans, and all these Spider-Mans kind of combining their powers to fight this evil and saving the multi-universe. And according to the comic, it's like 500 Spider-Man. So yeah, in the comic, it's like, it is so many Spider-Man characters. I mean, the movie, Spider-Verse, has like, 6 Spider-Man, 7? Yeah. No, in the comic, it's like 6 Spider-Man. Yeah, a lot of them, right? And again, they have all different powers. So it's like, I really expected the movie. So honestly, I had to put in the movie. I really expected the movie to be like at least, I'll say it, touch on that subject a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. They don't have to go into the whole, oh, you have to be like a god spider or something. But it is really explained though in the comics, but I kind of like that in the comics. The reason why it's almost always Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man, or like Peter Parker, so on, is because this whole divine thread, godlike thing, right? So he's kind of like cursed to become Spider-Man, no matter how it does it, right? In the comics, they really built up this totemic Spider-Man thing for a long time. And one thing they also been in the comic I like, even though it's kind of like a retcon thing, but still, is that they explain that because it's a spider totem, right? Spider god totem effigy for the spider gods kind of thing, that it means that he also fights all these animals things. Because they attract other similar powers. So that's why you have to fight the scorpion and the craven, the hunter, and so on. That's why you have to fight these other Spider-Man, his most of his rogue gallery is also animal based, because it's like, oh, but like if you're like a god of this animal, the other gods or whatever gonna send to you and so on. So it's kind of retcon, of course, like 50 years in the making. But I'm like, I kind of like that concept. They're like, no, you're like a spider god thing, so you can attract other, gods or other monsters to fight you, right? Ogun is mainly about that in most comics, right? You have the character fighting who they said, all right. You can see in most of the Marvel movies, you have Iron Man fighting evil Iron Man, you have Ant-Man fighting evil Ant-Man, right? So they just kind of liked it in the movies, right? And the comics. But at least in the comics, then they kind of explain why. No, but you're a Spider-Man, so you're a magical spider, so you're gonna fight a magical scorpion. Like, this is how it is. You're like, that's how the laws of the universe is, right? You're like, okay. That's at least explained that it makes sense in the comics, even though, again, it's retcon. But all that stuff, right, doesn't have to be mentioned, but I just mean like a little bit of that could have been mentioned, right? Could it have Strange going into details, maybe for like 5-10 minutes, right, being like, how can you fight me? You have to have some kind of Strange could have returned, being like, oh man, when I was stuck in that canyon stuff, I was analyzing how you could fight me, and you have to have some kind of foresight, some kind of magical something, be able to see the future, and that makes sense from like again, the Threads of Fate thing. So maybe you as a Spider-Man is connected to the fate of the world or something, and fate as in future, not fate as in like if it does not, you said you can see the future, right? You have some kind of future sight thing. Interesting. Like, couldn't that be said? And Spider-Man could be like, I have future sight. It's like, yeah, how else could you avoid me? I don't know. Like, yeah, and it's magic based. So you have some magic in your boy. Like, you have and then maybe Spider-Man could say like, oh yeah, I always felt some, because in the movie there is several mention. He's like, I feel kind of weird now, right? And the other Spider-Man, like Tom McGuire, is like, I feel I have to help him. Like, we have some kind of threaded connection, entwined, right? So I'm just like, man, they're doing a lot of this, like, again, I guess it's a memory bearer thing, but they're doing a lot of like hinting to the Spider-Verse, right? But they don't really touch upon it. Yeah, they don't really go into it in any detail. So I'm just like, man, all the Spider-Mans could, like, I have to help him. I feel I have to kind of connect with him in a Spider-Man sense, I guess. But again, we had Spider-Man use magical powers earlier. I'm just like, man, why can't that be at least explored for a tiny bit? Man, this review is just very negative now. But the thing is that, again, it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm gonna give the movie like a 5 out of 10, like a 4.5 out of 10, and I feel I'm being generous. Yeah, we're giving it a 5, right? But, and it's not like I really hate the movie. Like, I really, cause I only sit here for an hour saying bad stuff about the movie mostly, right? Or critiquing the movie. But the thing is that, like, again, I don't think it's not the worst movie I've seen in my life, and I think there are worse Marvel MCU movies. I get that with Spider-Man. So he's coming in rage now. But yeah, I get pissed off me here. Really pissed off. Come on. No, but like, for example, I think that, for example, Thor Dark World, right? Second movie, Thor movie, it is terrible. That movie is terrible. That movie is crap. Like, for example, right? So there are other Captain Marvel. That movie is terrible. There are definitely other Marvel movies that I find way worse than this movie. I would have said, for example, Suicide Squad, the first version. This is a DC comic movie. I'm getting wrong. I know it's a comics, and I have, of course, a lot of this stuff too. It's behind me, but I have a lot of Superman and stuff. Whatever. Obviously, that movie is worse, right? The new Suicide movie, though, with James, that movie is great, though. So, but I wish to point out, this is not the worst, like, comic book movie I've seen, right? I'll go into detail here, but you have the old Nick Fury movie with Hasselhoff. It's actually pretty. It's kind of quirky and fun, I guess. But you know what I mean. So this is not like the worst movie, right? Of the this kind of comic book movies. Though definitely, I think again speaking here, when it comes to DC versus Marvel, I find the DC animated movies to be amazing, not all of them, but they're really good. Most of the DC universe animated movies, and also the shows are great. And I watch Young Justice right every week and so on. It's great, yeah. So don't get me wrong, I have more stuff behind me now and the anime stuff and so on. But obviously, I watched all the DC stuff, and I have a lot of Batman comics and Superman, so whatever. But most of their movies are just crap, right? Like the live action movies, yeah, they're all just terrible. Like the DC movies, they're all terrible. And this movie here, it is better, I think, than most DC movies. Okay, again, DC movies. And then we have stuff like, of course, the Marvel movies, right? The recent Marvel movies, and also the recent Marvel shows like Loki, WandaVision, and so on, right? And yeah, this is not for me the worst Marvel thing I've seen, but it's just a weird movie to, again, I feel honestly to review it, right? Because what is the actual movie? The movie is terrible plot, a villainous Spider-Man, complete lack of any kind of innovation, right? Any kind of bravery, any kind of like, let's throw in a new villain. As I mentioned many times, yeah, but my point is throw in new characters, yeah. Both Spider-Mans, Spider-Man allies, and of course Spider-Man Rogue Gallery, yeah. Or at least have like double Green Goblin. How could that be? That would be interesting. Or, Spider-Woman. I really wanted to see boob Spider-Man, right? Honestly, yeah. That for me, because for me it's just a no-brainer. You should have Miles Morales in the movie. He's the Black Spider-Man. You should have him in the movie, like obviously. But also having female Spider-Man is like, because it's just a fun reaction, right? If it was a comic, they easily would have thrown in at least one female, probably more, like, Silk and so on. They would throw in several female Spider-Mans, because, of course, that kind of reaction, right? When the main Spider-Man's like, what, you're a woman, you have boobs? Well, you have a pee-pee? What? Don't have it, yeah. That kind of like Spider-Man, but you're a woman kind of thing, right? That's just interesting from a reaction standpoint. And we're gonna see Mary Jane, like, wait, you're a woman? And like, when you Mary Jane, I am Mary Jane, and whatever, yeah, that thing is interesting, right? And again, like Ned, Hobgoblin appearing and so on, interesting because his best friend and so on, right? And also Flash, of course. Flash is the Venom, right, in the comics. So you could have, Eugene Flash Thompson being Agent Venom, right? Could appear. As a good guy now, because Venom is a good guy. Agent Venom is good. So he could appear and help out, right? It also could have been, a good symbiote, right? And then Tom Maguire could be like, wait, are you a good guy? Because where I'm coming from, the symbiote is evil. It's like, well, I'm a good guy, I'm the symbiote, I'm Venom number, like this and Venom, so I'm actually good, right, And we could have anti-Venom Eddie Brooke appearing, right, and so on. I will say that the more I think about it, the Venom guys coming in, like anti-Venom, feels kind of weird. He's mostly he's an anti-symbiote guy, so it would be maybe a little weird. But it depends, right? Because if the bad guys, it depends on how the last fight could have been so much better, right? So again, if the last fight had like Carnage appearing, Venom, Carnage Spider-Man, right? These different symbiotes, right? Shriek, another symbiote kind of symbiote organized or like symbiote connected characters or whatever, right? Could have appeared from the different like Venom comics, Spider-Man comics, and the Maximum Carnage stuff and this fun stuff, right? They could have appeared, to speak. These characters could have appeared, and then it would make sense, right? If like Anti-Venom would appear to help Spider-Man, right? So it's really like you could have done so much, and they just did nothing with it. Yeah, they didn't even. Again, I honestly find that the best point. Honestly, but they didn't even do like a female Spider-Man, which is just a simple thing to do. And I don't keep saying it, and this movie is very long, but I'm just like, why not just throw in, a random female actor, pay you like $10, right? Yeah, you can be in the Spider-Man movie. You have to play Spider-Woman. You gotta have like red hair and so on. Be like you're gonna be like Mary Jane, and you're gonna look similar to, you know what they could have done in a very simple way. They could have done. They could have the same actress. They could have said, right, the same actress playing Mary Jane could have been, Spider-Woman. Yeah, I'm thinking about it honestly. I think it would be better if it was other actors, though. It's supposed to be a different what-if kind of character, right? But yeah, if you think about it in a very simple way, you actually could have had the same actors play Spider-Woman, right? Under the mask, you could have been, you're me, I'm you, yeah. And they could be like, oh, I'm still dating Peter Parker, it's my boyfriend, this one. Yeah, they could have still done that stuff, right? It's like, oh my god, it's so easy to make the movie so more interesting. Holy shit, it's boring. But at the same time, the movie has a lot of like, you watch the movie, you're like, it's not like an amazing scenes. Again, the Andrew saving her was the best scene by far. But it's like a lot of these scenes are like, I kind of smirk, like, that's good. Oh, that's goosebump scenes. So the movie is so strange because you have all of this. Again, it's like a clip show of some really good nostalgia bait, and then the rest of it is terrible. So you're like, you watch the movie, and I don't hate it. Honestly, I don't. But in this review here, I've been very, very critical because I don't have anything good to say, right? It sounds kind of weird, but I don't, because I have, what I can say is good is that, yes, a lot of these clips, a lot of this, basically, again, the Member Berry reference stuff was good, right? But what more can I say about that? It's like, yeah, that scene must be pretty funny, but the scene itself isn't good because it has like a good character development, or because it's a meaningful scene for the character, or so I don't know. Except the Andrew scene when he saved her, right, after Gwen. Except that scene, all the other Member Berry scenes are basically pointless in the general scope of a movie, right? They're basically just like a funny, that was a good joke, right? So yes, the movie I think was funny, right? I like the dialogue a lot, so on. It's obviously too much slapstick, I think, for a movie in Marvel, which they fortunately keep doing more and more. But it's like, if you remove, I don't know, I mean, basically, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff there, but it's almost, I feel generally, almost impossible to even talk about, right? Which is kind of weird to say, but think about it. How can you even review that? If you say that, oh yeah, the comedy is pretty good and these scenes are funny, but they're all like standalone, right? You can watch them out of context from the movie and chuckle a bit. That's pretty funny. And then you can keep going. That's how the movie feels, right? So it's like, yeah, it's like maybe 30, 40 minutes, maybe an hour of good like reference, nostalgia clips, right? But the rest of the movie is terrible. I think the beginning was, I didn't mention that, honestly, but thinking about it, I really disliked the old FBI. I thought that was his point. That was just boring. That was just dragged out, right? Yeah, that was dragged out. And then the movie in the middle has like no purpose. There's no plot line, right? So on. So everything in between this, I could have said at the time, everything in between these like good reference scenes are just pointless crap, right? And so even though I'm gonna give the movie like a 5, right? So it sounds like I'm saying the movie is like a 0 10, right? But if I think it's like a 5. I don't think it's the worst Marvel movie ever. And this is what I meant in the beginning. I feel it perplexed the movie to review because like these other Marvel movies I feel again they're way worse. But it's like, yeah, this movie has a lot of standalone, mostly comedy scenes, right? That feels good, and then nothing else really matters in the movie. So it's like a really weird movie in that sense. And I feel a 5 is generous. I probably should give it a 4 or something. Because it's so cowardly. I sort of like, cowardly stuff, right? I understand that they have so much money and so on, they don't want to like take any chances. But the movie's boring too, right? And I feel that, I guess, because I've seen, WandaVision and so on, right? WandaVision actually I think it's pretty good. But the other stuff like Hawkeye is really boring. Oh god, Loki is really boring. Like, they don't take much chances anymore. I think it's really boring because they're getting so bloated. And then you're like, okay, what can we do now? I was like, I don't know, we take the same guys for the scene, don't even add anything to it. It's just like, they're really cowardly, right? It feels just generally, it generally feels boring, and it feels like they, in the past, right, in the Marvel, they would take much more chances and do more interesting stuff, right? And now instead there's like, here's the character everyone already likes, so yeah, that's it, wrap it up, guys. Just throw in the character we've seen before. If anything, at least throw in all the character that we've seen before, like Double Green Goblin. I keep saying that, but for me, that's the most obvious lack. If you're only gonna have characters from those 2 movies, at least take all the bad guys, right? Not just a few of them. And again, it would be interesting to see Harry and Norman, fighting probably as Green Goblins, right? Because they would obviously hate each other, and Harry would probably betray him and so on. Like, and I don't know, thinking that it's so easy to write this shit. Like, I'm imagining, both Harry and Norman being there, right? First, you're gonna have some scuffle, then they're gonna team up probably, but in the end, Harry is gonna be like, no, I have to save, my friend Peter and my dad is crazy, he's gonna probably betray Norman, and that's why Norman dies or whatever. That would be so much more interesting. Am I the only one thinking that shit? I was honestly waiting for. I don't know honestly, but I heard that James Franco wasn't gonna be in the movie. That's one of the spoilers I heard, but I wasn't sure it was true. So I really keep hoping that Green Goblin, goddammit, we can also have Harry Green Goblin from another Harry appearing. It doesn't have to be just that same actor. It can be another Harry appearing, and again, or the other Harry, from the second movie. So yeah, appearing and like defeat his father, right? Classic kind of redemption Harry scene, and of course then save Peter Parker, right? The kind of redeeming his mind and so on. It'd be like, wait, this is such an obvious thing. I'm just like, why is nothing happening? If anything, that's kind of boring too, where the whole nostalgia is, because they didn't actually do anything with it, right? They didn't do much like, am I the only one, again then, the rather see, for example, Kurt Connor's wife is a lizard in some of the what is so on, right? Some of the universes, right? And his kids so on too. What if his wife could appear and fight him as a good lizard, like a lizard lady? Something like that, right? Yeah, those kind of stuff didn't happen. They went very, very, they was very shallow, right? Using these older characters, because they didn't really have them in a cool, interactive way, in that sense, because they didn't interact with any new characters. They didn't interact with any other characters from any other universes. So it's just a really weird movie, and maybe my expectation was too high or something, but I don't think they were. Pretty low, honestly, because I don't have much faith in this Phase 4 at all in Marvel, right? And I feel pretty like, oh man, especially the TV shows have been pretty terrible, all of them, except WandaVision probably. The WandaVision I liked, as I mentioned, not the best show ever, but I liked just generally every episode changed kind of like the setting and so on. So it felt very good, right? But the other ones I feel are all mostly terrible. Most of them. Not like the worst, but it's like, meh. But Hawkeye especially is really boring. Holy shit. I watched episode 1 and 2 right when it aired, and I was like, I haven't watched more than that. I was like, oh my god, it's just boring. And that's almost kind of worse, right? Because Hawkeye, and I don't know, like, simply compared to it, Hawkeye is much worse than this movie. Don't get me wrong. This movie has a lot of issues, but at least it has, as the match, this funny parts, right? Hawkeye is just boring. And Hawkeye isn't bad, like you have really bad writing or whatever. It isn't like it's terrible writing or whatever. It's like, it's just kind of boring, yeah. There's no fault of the actors. It's not like I feel this actor's doing a bad job, whatever. I just feel like the general, nothing happens in the first episode. I'm watching it and be like I have no interest, right, watching more of it, because I'm just really bored by it. And I'm not even really like annoyed by, Kate Bishop and this like young female Hawkeye girl or someone. She's in the comics 2 and 2 1. I know people are like, oh, girl Hawkeye's bad. I don't even care. That's not an issue either. And actually, she's probably the best part of the Hawkeye show, the younger, female Hawkeye kind of thing. Yeah, she's probably the best part of those shows, 2 episodes. But it's just generally that the episode 1 and 2 was just really boring. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm not. Maybe I'm gonna binge it when it's over or something. But I felt like, oh my god, this is just really, again, like mundane. I'm like, where am I, kind of thing, right? And again, that makes it worse, this movie, by easily. Because I would give Hawkeye something like a 2 out of 10 or something. It's so boring. And it's not even that, like, except like I talked about it in last Thursday, and I reviewed Plotline, an anime from the same author as Death Note. And I was like, Plotline is so terrible that it's good, right? Yeah, I keep saying that in my Plotline reviews, but it's like, Plotline is one of the worst animes of last year, and it's gonna keep going this year, one more season. And it is easily top 10 worst anime last year. Maybe even the worst anime, literally worst year, because it's so bad. But it's so incredibly bad that you're enjoying it, because it's so stupid. Every scene is so comedically bad, right? So you're laughing at it. It's like it becomes a comedy, right? Because it's so badly written. Hawkeye isn't on that level. Hawkeye is badly written, but not enough badly written. Right? It's just boring. Yeah. It's not enough bad that you laugh at it. It's just like, nothing happens. I guess like something else. Yeah. So no. Again, this movie isn't the worst, but I have a very hard time even pointing out the good stuff in the movie, because it's just like, it's a lot of nostalgia bait that was pretty good, but what else? Anyway, it's a long review. I guess it's therapeutic for me, because I don't know why. It wasn't like I expected the movie to be good either, honestly, but I'm just so bored that they had so many potential. This movie has so much potential. You could have done so much with the movie, right? You could have done so much. You could have at least thrown in a female Oppa Spider-Woman, or something. But you refuse to do anything. And as I mentioned earlier, it really reminds me of Star Wars 7, right? Where it's like we're just gonna go for the member berries. We're not gonna even try to like do anything new. And I like this. It's an interview with George Lucas when he talks about Spider-Man 7. He's like, at least I tried to do something new. Is his comment when he's talking about it. He was like, yeah, he basically is like, at least I tried to do something new, right? Which I think is a really funny comment to it. He's like, yeah, because Star Wars movies 1, 2, and 3 are maybe not that popular, right? But he was like, at least I tried something. Yeah, if you move Jar Binks from his movies, I think that his movies are definitely better than 7, 8, 9, because those movies are all terrible. I'm throwing fire everywhere now, but those movies are freaking terrible. The 7th movie is a remake of the 4th, episode 4. It's really boring. Just like this movie here, it's really boring. The plot is boring as the one we've seen it before. And then 8 is just like a train wreck, and the Snoke thing is train wreck, and then 9 is a train wreck too. They are both terrible movies. The 8 is like completely ruined. The Snoke thing doesn't make any sense, and it ruins the whole plot line. And then the 9th movie is like, oh, the 8th movie never happened. Here's Papa, he's back again. The Emperor or something. He was like, I don't know, hiding in a cave for 50 years. Who knows? It's just like, oh my god, it's just like it is so obvious he was never supposed to be back there. Whatever, that's not the video, but yeah, I absolutely despise those 3 movies. And so, again, this movie is much better than those movies. It's much better than 8 and 9. But it's probably, for me, is around like episode 7, right? You know what I mean? It is very similar to episode 7. But I guess, honestly, I probably like this movie more than episode 7 of Star Wars, because I think the comedy here is better. So, yeah, the comedy and so on is better. So I guess I like it more, actually, when I'm thinking about it. But I despise 8 and 9. They're like 1 of 10 movies to me, right? So I despise them. Easily despise them. One of the worst parts in my life. But anyway, long review, guys. Subscribe. Press the like button. I tend to not do too much Marvel. I used to have a Marvel, DC Comics, so on YouTube channel many years ago, right? But then I got really disinterested in Marvel's comics. So again, I was reading all the comics, right? I was reading all the comics, and I used to blog, and I played games, and then I thought to go back into this channel, do some stuff again on it, mostly for a Marvel game. But this is not a video. But the reason I stopped doing my other channel, I thought about my video earlier too, because I was very early on YouTube having a Marvel channel. So I had a lot of subscribers on. But the reason I stopped, I was just like, oh my god, the comics are terrible. I can't read them anymore. And this was way before people started arguing about the whole SUV and this stuff and so on in Marvel Comics. I was like, I was years ahead of the curve. I was like, man, this is gonna go bad. So I just couldn't read them anymore. I felt it was unreadable. And one thing I explained, people think that, oh, you just stopped over to watch anime or so on, or manga or whatever, right? I actually didn't, no. I've been reading manga and anime, or watching anime since I was like a kid, right? Since I was 2, 3 years. So I've been reading manga as long as I've been reading Marvel and DC Comics, right? So no, it's the same thing, really. It's the same thing, yeah. I think I mainly went to play more games or train or whatever. So basically, let's imagine I spend 10 hours a week with manga and anime, right? And 10 hours a week with like Western comics, okay, Marvel and so on, and DC as well. So 20 hours a week then, right? Also combined. When I just completely dropped out of Marvel comics for a few years there. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that didn't mean I went to do like 20 hours of anime or whatever. I was like 10 hours more free time. I guess I played more games or something. So I didn't actually increase my anime manga intake or whatever. I was like, I do something else completely. I was like, go to the gym or something. Yeah, it was more like that. But I think a lot of people, kind of went in a similar pattern though, but they kind of like threw away Marvel or whatever, right, in the 2010 and so on, and then they went to read manga and anime. Obviously, as we know now, manga volumes are outselling Marvel and DC, right, by like 10 times, right there. So it definitely is a huge lack there. But honestly, I was so ahead of the curve, right, and I had this Marvel DC Comics channel, right, and I was like, I just can't read it anymore. If I kept doing that channel, I probably would have a pretty big channel, honestly, like now, because I was big back in the days. It's like 10 years ago. More than that. It's like, 13 years ago, something. Really, really back in the days. But I was like, I'm just so angry at Marvel. So maybe this is why I'm so pissed off. No, but I'm just like, this movie doesn't really have that issue, but I don't know. This movie is similar, honestly. I feel how the comics have been going downhill, right? It's like, where's the plot here? Yeah, where's the storyline? Like, where's the main storyline? This is like, I don't understand. Right? What are we doing here? Like, what is it actually about? It's about Spider-Man being a bad guy, and then nothing really happens, and they take no chances. Right? It's so boring. But it reminds me a bit of why I dropped Marvel comics for a few years, and I went back and read them all anyway, eventually. But I definitely, but it's kind of like it's kind of comparable to a TV show, right? Like you drop it in the beginning, it wasn't that good, but it's kind of good, and then you come back like a half year later and you binge it, right? It's kind of like that, yeah. I dropped Marvel comics and DC comics for like a few years, and then I was like, whatever, I'm gonna binge read them all now. Okay, I buy all the comics and I read them all now, Sat for a week and just read, binge read like. Kind of like that, right? After a few years. And then there's been a few ones that I, of course, kept track on, right, during the years. Kept a couple of some characters I like more, like Gambit, yeah. Some characters I kept, following, right? But, yeah, this movie reminds me of that. They have to take they're so cowardly. They take no chances anymore. It's, the comics used to be crazy. The comics tried to make Mystique the father of Rogue and so on, yeah, because she could change gender and so on. Like, they got like censored on that. But the comics used to be crazy. So then he just pushed all the boundaries. Yeah, they used to be crazy. And now it's just like, how can we, either try to gain people that don't care about us anyway, or try to retain what we have, right? And that's of course why manga and anime is winning anyway. But it's not a video. But I just want to point it out that I feel the movie. It's like a mixture of that, right? The cowardly Marvel mixture with the Disney, just the member bears. Yeah, it's the Star Wars 7 combined fusion with the coward Marvel. Yeah, like we can't do any new bad guys. We can't do any new heroes. We can just do what we already have, right? So it's like, it is really weird. It's really weird. But anyway, guys, long video. Subscribe to the button. See you guys with some manga and anime. I think we have One Piece. Of course, it's Uda's birthday today. We have One Piece tonight, right? And then I'm gonna watch a golf anime. I believe it's out like an OVA. And I wanted to watch Baccarina, one of my favorite animes of all time, right? But then I think it's an OVA, yeah. So I quickly checked it through because it had like a weird title. So basically, there is a new Baccarina anime today. Hamma 4 then, Baccarina, yeah. But it's a recap. Actually, before this video, I did a quick check on it. It's just a recap. Unfortunately, it's just like 30 minutes of. The older episodes. I love Baccarina, right? Much better Spider-Man. Amazing anime. Isekai, one of the best ever. But it's unfortunately a recap, so I won't do that video. First I tweeted that, oh my god, Baccarina OVA, because I know there is an OVA coming right this year. But no, it's just like a recap. But there is a real OVA coming later this year. There's an actual, continuation, like a movie, right? Like a Baccarina movie coming. So that definitely review the movie. But it's like one of my favorite anime of all time. Baccarina is an amazing show. So very disappointed on that this morning. So first I tweeted like, oh my god, the OVA of Baccarina, the movie's already here. Oh, and then I was like, wait, it's just a recap. God damn it. That was more disappointing than this movie. However, that being said, though, isn't this movie quite the recap, right? Isn't this movie quite the recap? Anyway, subscribe, press that button, or have a great New Year's Eve.